What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the MulletCast, the podcast where business and pleasure collide. My name's Evan Balmer.
What's going on? It's Mike Marcia.
What's up, Mike? Today we are joined by Bret Morgan. Bret is the co-founder of Cowerks and Humble Humans. He's also involved in many other things, so fresh markets, bands on a budget, merch works, Asbury Agile, Explorers Supper Club, Jersey Tech Meetup, Blockchain, JSD Meetup. We got a long list, but let me give you a couple sites to check out. Actually, the best probably is bretmorgan.me. Is that your site?
Yeah, that's generally the site that I guess all my projects and interests
That's
collide.
cool. A lot of links live there, but definitely check out Coworks, Cowerks, coworks.com, and on Instagram at Coworks. Also, asburyfresh.com and at asburyfresh. So what's happening? Thanks for joining us today.
No, thanks for having us. This is awesome. I'm like I said a couple weeks ago. I'm a fan of the podcast, so I'm actually excited to be on here. So
That's cool.
I think what you're doing is pretty awesome for the local business community.
Thanks. I
love
definitely
hearing
appreciate it. Yep. And I mean, full disclosure to our audience out there, I am a Coworks tenant, so I don't want anyone to think anything weird's going on here. There's no payola or anything like that. I'm not getting any free rent. But I love Coworks. It's been awesome for me as a way to get into Asbury and transition like my other office to be there more full time. And I see you bouncing around all the time, and I always think you're up to something cool. I mean, you're always talking to different people and have various projects going on.
Yeah, I tend to keep busy. We a lot of I guess what has always kind of moved me or driven me is wherever interests lie. Fortunately,
Right.
I've realized I have had a little bit of entrepreneurial ADD over the years, and hence the long list of projects we have. But really, they all started really as just like a little side thing. Like the farmers market, for example, was we were sitting at one of our old office on Madison Avenue in like 2011, 2012, and we were sitting in a friend's apartment right above it, like having a couple beers, eating dinner, and we're like Asbury needs a farmer's market in the downtown. So
Right.
just kind of planted the seed. So I sent out a couple emails the next week to a couple people in City Hall, and a week later we had a farmer's market.
That's crazy.
So
Awesome.
we just kind of it was just a little side thing I started. Year one, to be honest, was abysmal. We had maybe 4 tents in the park.
Right.
Fortunately, one of them was a girl I just started dating, who is now my wife.
Nice.
So it basically, if anything, that year gave me an excuse to be like, hey, yeah, you're gonna come up on Saturday and hang out, and then we'll go to the market, and you can set up a tent for free on Sunday. And
Farmers market, eh?
yes, that worked out. But then honestly, I wasn't even going to do it year two, and then we started to get phone calls January, February from a couple farms and a couple vendors being like, "Hey, is there a market in Asbury?" And
Right.
so we decided to do it year two. We were like, whatever, we'll try it again. Year two, it got a little bit bigger. Year three, it started to get bigger, and then I think by year four, we were putting 50 to 60 tents a week in that park.
Wow.
So at that point, I actually it became too much of an operation. I had a couple partners help me out with it over the years, but it was a little too much of an operation for I knew it needed to go into our parent company.
Right.
So I basically approached Danny and Greg, my partners, and hey, how do you feel about putting fresh markets, or at that time it was just Asbury Fresh,
Right.
into the family? And so yeah, they were into it, so we did that. And I think the next year we 5x'd our revenues, our growth, everything, just by being having a support system of between the branding, between
Right.
the team, being able to hire a full-time person to manage the market and actually give it the love that it needed. And it allowed us to really launch. I mean, that's so we launched Bellworks. We launched a series of winter markets. We've launched the Harvest Fest.
You have Bradley Beach, right?
Yeah, Bradley Beach. We did a market in Belmar. We tried that for a couple of years. It didn't take off how we wanted it to. So we, I guess it's called now failing quick. So we were basically we unfortunately had to cut that one loose.
Right.
But yeah, we launched a pilot market in Pure Village last year, and we're going to do a full season this year.
Oh, that's
and,
cool.
Nice.
Yeah, and we have some other stuff we're kind of planning along those lines. But really, it was it's crazy that it wasn't I ever intended to start this thing. It was kind of came out of just a little need that I saw. Asbury Park 2012 needed in the downtown. So
Right.
Which one's your biggest out of all the locations?
Asbury's probably the biggest. I will say Bellworks will probably take over in
Just space wise?
just space wise. There's a lot more space at Bellworks. That park we're kind of like limited with. I mean, I've gotten like 65 tents in there, but literally if somebody shows up like 5 minutes late, somebody's set up like a foot the wrong way, it kind of throws everything off. So we've learned to basically like scale back the number of tents we put in there.
Right.
It makes it a lot much better experience for everybody.
Yeah.
So
That's cool. I noticed. I mean, I guess we'll shift gears a little bit. One more on Asbury Fresh is you do a lot of writing on Medium.com. I encourage people to check it out at Bret Morgan there. But you mentioned how you'll bring bits and pieces back from traveling around the world, and you had some photos of different markets, like where streets are shut down, and like the market takes over. Is there a room for that in anywhere in Asbury as you grow?
yeah, I mean, we're always like, one of our interests is like, I love food. I've been a vegan cooking, whatever, not a professional chef, but I'm pretty good at it, I like to think, but for like 17 years now. So it's I travel, like we travel a lot. I try and spend like 2 to 3 months a year overseas somewhere, usually warm and tropical, but a lot of what we do is like eating our way around cities and countries, experiencing like different food cultures, and then bringing a little bit of that back. We're working on a concept, potentially to do some more food centric concepts with some of the things that I've seen and explored over the past like 10 years of traveling. So.
That's cool. You had mentioned to me in passing that back in the day you owned an all ages venue in Montclair, and then I saw a picture of something you wrote of you playing some guitar back in the day. I didn't know you were in a band back then also.
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense. So what was your band and what kind of stuff did you play?
I had a bunch of bands back in the day. I mean, I grew up in the, I guess like the late 90s, like mid-late 90s, like alternative, and then like when I discovered like Operation Ivy, like Minor Threat, like every other like Dead Kennedys, and like every other kid that was like 15, 16-year-old kid.
Right.
At the time, it was just like, oh my God, what is this? And then it just was like a game changer. So I grew up in like the whole like late 90s, 2000s, like punk hardcore scene in like New Jersey. I grew up down by Philadelphia, so a lot of Philly stuff. We were going to a lot of shows in Philly when I was younger.
Right.
I went to Montclair State, so after school, after college, hung around. So I played in a lot of like punk, like post-hardcore bands. I played in a band called NOLA for a number of years that we wrote a couple records, and but it was kind of like melodic hardcore, like that style that was popular in that time.
You still play guitar?
Only when my kid asks me to play the Cookie Monster song.
So how old?
He's 2.5.
Two and a
He'll
half,
be 3 he'll be 3 in March.
So it's funny, is like you said something that resonated with me because I'm taking bass lessons right now, and I'm like mostly horrible. I had a little bit of a breakthrough last week. Like I got excited. I'm like, you know what? I might be onto something. Like I felt like for the first time I actually like played without staring at a piece of paper and thinking about it. But you said you made a schedule basically. It said, all right, I'm going to practice guitar because that's the only way and like miraculously you got good, right? Because you were dedicating the time.
I'll say I got better.
You got better. So like that's something I'm plugging in. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like instead of saying I'll practice bass when I get some spare time, like I'll plug it into the schedule, right? Like play bass for even a little bit of time.
Yeah, it's really anything that like whether it's let me kill it. Sorry about that. But really it's anything, whether it's like playing music, whether it's doing yoga, whether it's like trying to like learn how to be a business person, whether it's trying to learn like a language. It's really just finding the time. We're all busy. I mean, I haven't met anybody that isn't busy.
Right.
But it's really about is this important enough like for you to like make time and carve space out? And I guess when I was like touching on that in that article, that's really what it was, is like the things that you want to get better at, like you can find the time for. And and my passions have changed and shifted over the years, but there was a time when all I wanted to do was learn how to play guitar, and I wanted to learn like, so I would come home from work and miserable from my job, and I would pick up a guitar and play for 6 hours straight some days, and that was it. And it happens quick. I mean, but you can apply the same thing to anything. Like when I started the club, I mean, really in my former like life, I worked for Lucent as a network engineer, and then I worked at ITT as a software engineer, and I absolutely hated going to work. I hated the corporate mentality, the corporate lifestyle. So I was living in a house with 12 people and paying I think I was making an adult salary of $50,000 a year or something, but I was literally living on maybe $300-$400 a month. And I just saved up a bunch of money, and I said one day I quit, and I went in and I took out a lease on a place, and I was like, I'm going to open a music club.
Right.
And it was great because I was like, I don't need to do anything about business. I'm just going to go play. I'm going to put my favorite bands in here. I'm going to do this. And then it was about a year or two, not even 2 years, maybe 6 months. I'm like, oh wait, I actually have to make money to do this.
Right.
so then my passions quickly shifted to oh, I need to learn about business.
Right.
So and then I started reading books about biz accounting and just general business entrepreneurship books, and then books about personal finance and investing and I realized that nobody when you run your own business or an entrepreneur nobody's thinking about your retirement except for you. So you need to you can keep putting it off, but even put $100 away, put $100 away, and so I started to develop those patterns, and I kind of gave myself a quick crash course in business, and it was it was crazy how I was wait, this thing that I hated and I never wanted to do, I'm this is kind of cool.
Right.
And now I realize it's a vehicle to be able to do and chase things that you an interest in, be able to take an idea a farmer's market, something that you're this is really cool, and then you can kind of turn it into something that you do for a lot of times, because I see people do something for a year or two and they're not making any money because it's a passion thing, and then it's oh, this is cool, but now I got to go make money.
Right.
But if you can kind of create a business around it, then you can basically make that your part of your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So what did you study at school?
Computer science,
Computer science. Okay.
math and physics. So
Math
I was
and
a glutton
physics.
for punishments.
Okay.
No, Montclair had a nice little you asked me if I was a hacker before. They had a nice little hack where if you took the right series of electives, I think you had to take one extra class, and then you could pick up your math and physics minors there at the time. So
Okay.
it was the nice little thing that all of us did.
Nice.
That were in one of the programs there. So
Awesome.
So as you were making the transition into business, are there any things you learned or any books that stick out in your minds that were real important early on to you?
There's one. It's ironically enough, I can't remember the name of it, but it's the general principle was about index investing. So it's the whole concept of you're not going to beat the market. You're not you don't have enough money. You're not smart enough. You're not so just it basically taught you the basic principles of don't invest in things you don't understand.
Right.
So investing in broad-based indices and not trying to time be smarter than any of that in the market, and that's how you build long-term wealth.
Right.
And so I started doing that, and then the other lesson from that is only invest in things you understand. And being in tech, I bought some Apple early on, and, which was nice when I bought a house last year.
Right.
And and things like that. That was one of the books that kind of I remember, and I can't remember the name of it, but it was just one of those little 100-page idiot's guide to investing something or other. I guess another book early on was Losing My Virginity by Richard Branson was another inspirational, coming from the music industry and then kind of transforming into a general entrepreneur that owns airlines and wine companies and has companies start and fail and blow up and whatever.
Yep.
I think he owns last time it was 300 and some companies.
That's wild.
So things like that kind of showed me that all right, well, everybody that tells you typically find something laser focused and go at it,
Right.
which I think is a good strategy, and I think there's definitely something you said there, but it doesn't mean you can't kind of chase stuff around. I mean, I think one of the things that we've really been refining the past couple of years is that focus, and we've put a lot of stuff out. We've built some businesses, and now we're really trying to focus on how do we grow these things that we have. So.
Gotcha. So how did you make the move from club owner up in Montclair down to Asbury?
Surfing.
Yes.
Nice.
I had been coming down here with a couple friends. This is 2004, I guess, 2005. But I moved down here full time. But we were coming down here a couple of days a week, surfing, hanging out. I think Finn's had just opened, so it was we would go surf in Seven Presidents and Long Branch. They'd be oh yeah, let's go to this close restaurant. Which was 25 minutes away. So we would go down and drive to Bradley Beach,
Right.
go eat some lunch, and then drive back up to Montclair.
That's cool.
And I remember I was like sitting at the club one night, and I was just like, I was kind of getting bored of Montclair. It was like I went from being like the cool spot on like the crappy block to the fancy Italian restaurant moved down the block from me.
Right.
And then like the police were like, oh, you can't, like the police would show up one night and be like, you can't have kids hanging out in front of the club. Then the next night to be like you need to have all your kids hanging out in front of the club. And it just like I could see the writing on the wall.
Right.
I signed a lease like when I was 24, knowing nothing about business. So that eventually caught up with me. And so it was. I mean, I moved down here, I guess 2004. I closed the club in 2007, but I realized that at that point I had management in place. I didn't need to be there.
Right.
I could like my work was pretty much the weekend. So I basically just decided to do a reverse commute. So one night I was sitting at the club. I said to my manager, I was like on Craigslist, like looking up apartments and like, and I found something. It was like $400 share in Ocean Grove.
Right.
I said to my manager, like, I'm going to step out for like a couple minutes. So jumped on the parkway, flew down, looked at it. I was like, I'll take it.
No way.
Then flew back.
Right.
And it was probably like not even 2 hours door to door.
Right.
And I was like, I'm moving to Ocean Grove. She's like, well, when did you decide that? And I'm like, well, I just went down to Ocean Grove, looked at the place. And she's like, you were only gone for like 20 minutes. I'm like, well, it's 2 hours, but still. So then I basically gave away, still got rid of most of my stuff and everything, and like jumped in the car. I picked up a bed on the way down at IKEA.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Jumped into my car.
That's really cool.
And I moved to Ocean Grove.
My brother-in-law just signed a lease, moving from Philadelphia in Ocean Grove.
Right.
He moved in last weekend. He's pumped.
That's
I mean,
cool.
he just wants to be by the water. He fishes. It's like
that's so awesome.
he's right across from the Cowerks.
Okay, nice.
Literally,
right
like,
on the lake.
right across the lake. Yeah.
So was that a big step for you, like to realize this place doesn't need me and I can turn it over to somebody else? Or it doesn't need me all the time?
I guess so when you put it like that.
Right.
I was going to say one of the things that I know, like a lot of the principle of the podcast is like party in the front, like whatever, like both business in the front, party in the back, where it's like, yeah, you're like business, but it also kind of work-life balance and stuff like that. And one of the things when I had the club was in 6 years we were open. I think I took one trip. I took a trip to like Costa Rica in like 2004, 2005 with my brother for like a week, and that was like, and I remember getting off the plane. I turned on my phone, and it was like, like it just it blew up, and any relaxation, anything I got out of that week was done when I was still sitting on the airplane.
Right.
And I was just like, I can't. Like I realized anytime I like was gonna do a business after that, I was just like, I'm not doing something that is dependent on me. I'm not doing something that like I'm like the cog or the gatekeeper.
Right.
And I'm gonna build something that like I enjoy it, but at the same time, and I work hard, but at the same time, I can't do something that is solely dependent on me. So
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So when you got down to Ocean Grove, enjoyed the surfing and all that, doing a reverse commute, at what point did you start like thinking I'm going to work in Asbury also, or do create something here?
well, we it was, I guess, Asbury was the Wild Wild West back then.
Right.
So there was like a party. It's where Langosta Lounge is now, but there was a Friday night party called the Shark Party.
Right.
And it's like every Friday night, that's where everybody that was living down in this area that was into music and everything was into would be there. And it was crazy because even back, that was like 2006, 2006,
Right.
maybe 2005. And there was like 150, 200 people would come out to this thing. And so I got to meet a lot of the other like people into music and some of the other like music business people. And just having the club, you meet a lot of like promoters and stuff. So I met Danny, my partner. One of my partners now was he actually was the organizer of this party.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah, him and another guy. And
That's cool.
but he was a concert promoter, and we never met face to face, but like I would rent my room out to them like pretty regularly, and he was always the person I deal with in email and phone and stuff like that. So we just kind of connected, and then it turns out there was like a space that a bunch of the other music entrepreneurs were kind of working out of. Just like
Right.
it was kind of like pre-co-working, or I think it was called a jelly back then, or it wasn't actually called that, but now it is. But it was just kind of like a place where a couple of local, similar types of businesses. There might be a concert promoter, might be a venue owner, might be like I don't know, somebody doing something tangential to the music industry.
Right.
And so we were just working. Like I go down there a couple times a week. We'd all be working there, and like we'd get phone calls like, oh, where do you get T-shirts made, or like where do I get CDs printed? And
Right.
and I remember one day Danny was just like, one more fucking band said like, where do I get my fucking CD? And I just was just like, like, dude, we should just do something dumb and like create a company and just call it something stupid like Bands on a Budget.
Nice.
And then he just got quiet. And he's like, oh, I just bought the domain name.
Nice.
So I threw up a website. I think like a quick website over the weekend. And then he had a little bit of a contact list. I think I had about 5,000 emails from the club.
Right.
So we just like pinged the list and
That's killer.
we started the business.
Right.
And then that business, I mean, we operated out of our houses, garages, like for a number of years. And then I guess in 2008, the business was growing. We had a couple people like working for us, and we knew we needed like space.
Right.
So we moved into a space on Madison Avenue that we shared with another business. And I think at that time we were paying, I think the full rent was like $600 a month for like retail space on Madison Avenue.
Wow.
And
That's
we were
nuts.
just like, do you think we can afford $300 a month?
Right.
So we did that. We grew a little bit, and this is actually interesting. This is where Coworks starts. So a couple of years later, our business, the other business, we're both growing, and we had like this little office that was like maybe should hold 4 people. We have 12 people in there.
Right.
So they moved to another space. The space next door to us became available, so we ended up taking that space. And,
That's cool.
And that space was it was a little too big for us, and I think the rent was like $900 a month.
Right.
So we were like, we can't afford $900 a month. Like that's insane.
Right.
But we need it. So I think my dad had sent me some article about coworking like a year or two. This is probably like 2009, 2010, I guess.
Right.
So my dad sent me an article about this new revolutionary thing in Philadelphia and called coworking. And
Wow.
so it was like in the back of my head. And
Right.
so I just said, I was like, why don't we just throw a couple of desks in the corner and just like open a coworking space and like we'll run our business out of it. So we did that. Nobody cared.
Right.
So nobody knew what, like, so it's a, what's a shared office?
Right.
Nobody knew what it was at the time.
What do I want your desk for? I don't get it.
And so we, so basically we had this space. Nobody knew about it. Nobody cared. I had, through all this, I should also say I had like a small like freelance web development shop where I had like anywhere between me and 10 people working under me at any time, like all
Right.
contractors. So I had a lot of connections in like the software, local web developer, designer,
Gotcha.
like whatever
Right.
community. So I was like, well, we should start like a meetup. Like, I think the NJ Tech meetup had just started at the time, and I knew Aaron, the guy who runs that, and I was like, this is kind of something that would be cool to do down here.
Right.
And so we just started literally just meeting at brick wall and had 5 or 6 people coming out and hanging out, like drinking beer, arguing about like iOS versus Android and things like that. And real interesting, engaging topics. But what we started to do is build a community, and then we started to see some people come into, like, some people started to use the space, and
Right.
and that group started to grow, and then like the next month we'd have like, first month we have 5 people, and we have like 10, and then we have 20, and then we started to be able to do like 40, 50 people coming out to events, and it was like you could tell there was like this community gelling around it.
Right.
That was also the time when John Liedersdorf was putting together the Lake House project and wanted us to come in and he wanted actually Bands on a Budget to come in and take space in that. And then we were like, well, why don't we just do Coworks? I mean, we've been doing Coworks for a couple of years at that point. And the biggest complaint we got was private offices. People wanted private offices.
Right.
And so we basically put together a floor plan. We built a couple small offices in there, and then we were full by day one and completely at capacity.
Wow.
Which then, fast forward, when he did his second expansion, we took that whole top floor and built out a lot more offices up there. And then
Right.
that's when we started the Junction Hall project up the
Yep.
street. And it really was just kind of like this whole like grassrootsy type of thing that kept snowballing.
Right. So what year did you move into the Lake House and set up Coworks there?
That was April 2013.
Okay, cool. And then expand. And then what year did Junction Hall?
That it feels like forever ago, but I
Right.
think the year anniversary of High Voltage was like the cafe on the ground floor was like last October. So it's been open. I think our first tenants moved into Junction Hall on January 2017.
Right.
So
So how did that project come together? Like, how'd the expansion come about?
that one's interesting because part of what we've been realizing, we said kind of like or I was saying before about lasering in and kind of figuring out your business model. It's taken us a while, but really, I think the projects we're interested in now are ones that we have some sort of like participation in the underlying real estate versus just being a straight tenant.
Sure.
So we had in our mind like we need to buy something. We need to buy something. So the Second Life Bike building, I've known Carrie for like, I don't know, 10 years. She was one of the first people here in Asbury as well.
Right.
One of our friends and mentors sits on their board of directors, and because they're like a nonprofit, he basically approached us and said like, hey, there's this like they had done a Kickstarter trying to buy the building so they could have some longevity. The owner was retiring and trying to cash out some of his properties.
Right.
So he basically gave her a really like good deal. She had a contract on the building, but she couldn't put the all the financing in place. So
Gotcha.
they had raised some money, but it wasn't quite enough to get them over the edge. So they approached us. We put together stuff on our end and just went in and bought the building with them. So then we ended up renovating. We put the 8 offices or whatever up on the mezzanine.
Right.
We put a cafe in. The bike shop decreased their footprint to the main street level side.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a garage space that we have a tenant back there.
Right.
So that was like our first like real estate venture.
That's cool.
But it was a cool, like it was like definitely like the thing I always thought about real estate, and we're working on some other stuff now that I can't really talk about.
Right.
But it's like the thing I've learned is like you always think these things are like, oh, I'm going to buy this. You put an offer in, and then it's like, cool, we're going to sign the deal, and
Right.
it's done. And it's like, and the thing, like, I mean, we were super creative with that, of like everything from like just the way we got to finance with banks, and whether like we use EDA grant hybrid loan program that we were awarded money to do our fit out. We like
Right.
got scrappy with finding like curating the tenants and the type of things that we wanted in there, and it's really like the more I've kind of learned is that's how all real estate, like any of the good deals seem to work. Is if somebody packages it up too nice, you're paying for that. So
Right.
it's interesting because now we're working on like a new project, and it's like a lot of the same elements, and I've basically that project taught us that like, oh, that's the norm. Like
Right.
yeah, it's a lot of work at the time. But
So you can't disclose it. You can't say, but is it in Asbury?
it is in Asbury.
Cool.
But that's cool. That's an interesting thing about that deal, though, is that place has such a special vibe, right? And if you did a straight up real estate deal, that probably would never happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if she bought the building, that's cool. She has a sweet bike shop, but there's such a unique combination between like a cafe, a grocery store, a bike shop, offices. You know what I mean? So there's something cool came out of that creative. Like, let's all make this happen.
Anybody
together.
that steps foot in there is like, this is the coolest,
Right.
coolest. And when you go upstairs, then you see the whole view of it, and you have all
Mm-hmm.
the bikes, and it's just
Yeah, and it's
unique.
And it's
Yeah.
I mean, there's a concept. I forget the name of the shop. There's a concept up in Brooklyn that it was loosely modeled after. And there's some other, again, just travel and like seeing stuff. And I'm always like taking pictures and taking notes, and if I see something that I like, I kind of store it. Where like even if it's just like something like out of flooring. I remember I was in Colombia a couple of years ago, and we were at a food hall in Colombia, and like there was like the floor patterns like of like the tiles they were using. I'm like, that's cool. I'm taking pictures, and it's there. So maybe a project we're working on, I'm like, they're like, oh, cool, we need flooring, or even my house. I'm like, yeah, like I'm probably redoing a kitchen this year at some point. I'm like, all right, cool, maybe I'll do something like that.
Yeah. That's cool.
But yeah, it's a lot of just like taking inspiration from a lot of different different places,
and maybe you saw this in Brooklyn, because I think I read in Tri-City a while ago that there was a concept to, in that garage space in there, like put food trucks in there, and I've seen something like that in Brooklyn, but I guess it wasn't approved by the town or something.
We had talked about that. I think the approvals were okay.
Oh,
we ended up finding somebody that wanted the space.
Rent the space.
So
gotcha.
It was
pretty cool.
Yeah.
We were doing 2 construction projects, and then all of our other stuff, and then it was like, oh, now we're gonna build this other new business.
Right.
Like, so it was basically like we had somebody that wanted the space, so we're like, we'll let them have it.
That's cool.
I remember one of the first networking events there, when the construction upstairs was still going on, before the cafe was up. There was a food truck in there, right?
We had Netuna was in there.
Yeah.
They were
there
running
was.
Yeah.
That's cool.
the service. I think the offices might have been open. We had them in there for a
They're
bit.
being finalized. Like the floors were still being worked on and stuff.
We had some. I remember they were in there to, I think, service. Like,
Yeah.
Just there were some people in there that needed stuff. So
Yeah, it was cool.
That is cool. So obviously, co-working's grown quite a bit as a concept. I mean, business-wise, it's insane, man. Right? The players that are in the game are crazy. So, are you in co-working for like the long haul? And is it something you're interested in expanding outside of kind of your area?
yeah, I mean, I think we have a pretty good model. One of the challenges with co-working is obviously like the 900-pound gorilla is like we work and they're like just consuming like the big major cities and buying up just leasing out spaces that they can.
Right.
And I think what they have done for like this is probably controversial, but I think what they've done for the whole co-working business model recognition is awesome.
Right.
And I mean, you go into some of these co-working Slack groups I'm in, and they're like, "Coworks is or co-working or WeWork is the devil," and like,
Right.
But I mean, they're bringing exposure, and to be honest, like, I don't think anybody has successfully built a scalable co-working model outside of like a major city, because like it's just a completely different game. Like,
Right.
like in New York City, like WeWork will go rent a floor and then sublease it to like big businesses. Like, that's not going to happen here.
Yeah.
Right.
And you have to kind of build a cool, unique package to your community. And we're not, I mean, we haven't perfected it, but I mean, we're moving in the right direction. I'd like to take this concept and move it. Like, I mean, we're kind of refining it, but like, but I like to do projects outside of Asbury Park, like real estate. Like, again, with the understanding that we're going to be involved in the real estate. We get people all the time, like brokers email us all the time and be like, "Oh, I got 20,000 square feet of prime co-working retail space," and it's like an industrial like park, and like, I don't know,
nothing around,
like exit like 140, like,
That's awesome.
and you're just like, nothing wrong with exit 140, but it's like, it's not like, that's not our model. Like, our model is like, give me a good piece of real estate that has like some good foot traffic in an up and coming area, and like that it's unique, and it's not just like this cookie cutter box and or office complex, and yeah, we're interested. We'll come take a look and we'll do something.
Right.
Yeah.
We also have a model where we didn't end up doing. We were working on a space a couple years ago, but we built this whole model out, a management structure system where, like, if a landlord has a piece of property and wants to like convert it to like co-working, like, or because co-working it's a lot of added value for a building. So if they want to come in and they don't want to operate and deal with all the day-to-day stuff, like hiring us as an operator to come in and do it. So that's a model we're also exploring.
Oh, that's cool.
I also think co-working can evolve way outside of like traditional offices too. I mean, again, people are like, you do all this and this and this. If you actually break it down, Asbury Fresh and the farmers markets and co-works are the exact same business model. We take a big space, we chop it up, we put a service layer around it, and then it becomes like, and that's our product. And then we make a thing around like just traditional space, whether it's like a park in Asbury Park, a common area space in like Bellworks, or
a warehouse at 140.
Yeah.
You know, whatever it is.
Yeah, and we can like, yeah, so it's basically the same business model. So I think there's something like, I think you're going to see, I mean, you're already kind of starting to see co-working get much more niche, and it doesn't have to even traditionally be like office space. So.
Right. That's cool. What are some up and coming areas you're interested in?
In terms of
like location wise, like other towns,
Okay.
like you might start exploring.
I mean, we've looked at some properties and stuff out in Trenton area, Atlantic City. Everybody is like talking about Atlantic City right now. Long Branch. That whole like Bay Shore area corridor is like kind of like, I think, interesting as well.
Right.
I mean, just around here. I haven't really thought too far. It's been a number of years since I've lived up north. So it's like I'm sure there's opportunities up there. I just don't. Again, I like to invest, and I look at my time as an investment in things that I understand. So it's been a little while since I've lived up that way, so I don't necessarily understand the markets up there. But I'm always interested as well.
Right.
I see the west side of Red Bank getting a little bit of that Asbury feel with the new construction. You know, small. There's Kitchen Organics over there.
Right.
Coffee Corral, B2 Bistro.
Right.
It's a cool little spot.
Yeah, the west side. I mean, Red Bank. We looked at some spots in Red Bank, but it's a lot of those buildings just like the amounts of. First off, there's not really anything for sale that's like reasonable for our type of model.
Right.
And secondly, the properties that are there is just the costs are. I mean.
Yeah, they're astronomical.
Again,
right?
like they're asking like $45 a square foot for spaces in some cases. And I know it's not market rate because you look and see like all the offices are vacant.
Right.
So
Yeah,
it's definitely not market rate.
Right.
So people might want it, but then and that's the thing is like we're not the type of like we're shifting towards the real estate investor mentality, and we're not the type of real estate investor that can sit on something like for 5 years, 10 years, and just like take the write down on it and wait for like the right thing to come along. So if we're gonna come and we need to do something right away. So.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's crazy how often you see that. Like there's a huge parcel of land in Ocean that I never even knew it had been sitting to be developed for a long time. Like someone's held it for like 20 years, just waiting for, approvals and stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah, some people can do it. It's
Right.
like, and that's a whole business unto itself. And
Right,
it's
totally.
fine, but
Right.
it's not
Yeah.
our business.
No,
Yeah.
you're right. You need to get in and get it going. So I know you like to travel a lot. How did that kind of interest get started with you?
My parents were teachers, so we had summers off, and every August or whatever, we would jump in a van for 3 weeks or whatever, and
Nice.
and pick a point on the map and be like, all right, we're going to drive to California, we're going to drive to Florida, we're going to drive to Minnesota. When we didn't have anywhere we were going to definitely be going, we went to Maine.
Right.
And which I love Maine. And it's
Right.
so I kind of grew up traveling, and I think by the time I was like 18, I'd been to like 42 states.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
And then, like, when I went to school and started, like I said, the first business, I didn't really, there was like a 10-year lull where I didn't do a whole lot of travel. 2008, my sister moved overseas and was living north of London. And she was there teaching for like a year. So I was like, oh, I'm going to come visit her. So I went over, we flew there, and we flew to Ireland. I'm like, came back, like, the wheels didn't fall off. And I was like, oh, this is cool. I can do this. So then, like, her spring break, or she had some break or something like that coming up, and I'm like, you want to go to Barcelona? So it was like we went to Spain, and then like I think I did a couple trips to Europe that year, and then around the time I started going down to Nicaragua, I've probably done like I don't know more than 15, less than 20 trips down there in the past like 10 years. Actually, I bought some property down there, but I started going down there for like the winters, and like we were saying before, how I hate New Jersey winters and like to winter over somewhere.
Right.
I started going down there for like a month or whatever. I think the longest I did like 6 weeks down there one time.
Right.
And I'd work. I mean, as long as there's like Wi-Fi or whatever, I'd be able to like check in and do some work and be able to like stay connected.
Right.
And it's not like I'm on like vacation just like drinking Tonios and doing nothing. I mean,
Right.
we're doing a lot of that, but
Right.
but
Yeah.
also like I'm like working 5 hours a day or whatever.
Right.
And I really I guess started. I think one of the first years or two, I realized I'm like, wow, I traveled 12 weeks this year overseas, and
That's cool.
And then it kind of consistently, like after a while, I kind of developed patterns of like, all right, in January I'll take a trip, and my sister, she's a teacher here, and she gets her Easter break, and we would always go to Europe, and since I got married and had a kid, it's a little more difficult to do that trip, but we would always like just go somewhere for a week and meet up in like Belgium or Germany or wherever.
Right.
Morocco, I think we went to. So then summers I would do a trip, and then late fall or whatever, and then winters, and you're
Right.
back. And you realize you can kind of build this nice little thing where it's like every like you come home, you work hard for, I don't know, 2 months, go somewhere for a week or two, come back, work hard, go
Right.
somewhere, and really just incorporate it into like workflow life. Like
That's
Same way you incorporate the guitar,
Right.
an hour a day. I
Yeah,
guess,
yeah.
Same scheduling. Yeah.
And that's what people are like, oh, I would travel, but I don't know how I can't find time or this. And I'm like my advice has always been like, I'm like, go buy a bottle of wine, have a couple glasses, get on kayak, and just buy a plane ticket, and just don't even like wake up the next day and be like, what did I do?
Right.
and then just figure it out.
And then
like,
plan it out, right.
And then you're committed, and you're gonna go. And
You'll plan around it.
yeah, and just make it happen.
So what was the appeal to Nicaragua originally? Is it surfing or was it something else?
Yeah, I had gone to Costa Rica a couple times,
Right.
and every time I had been down to Costa Rica, they're like, oh, you should really see Nicaragua. Nicaragua's what Costa Rica was 10 years. Everywhere I've traveled is like, you should see this because this is what it was 10 years
Right.
ago. So I went. My first trip was in like 2009, I guess, and I think Nicaragua is actually where Costa Rica was 10 years ago today. I mean, they're having some problems right now with the government, but in terms of like facilities and stuff, because when I went down there was nothing.
Really?
It's like our internet was like my first trip. It got better like pretty quickly, but I remember we would get internet for like an hour a night. Like the generator would kick on, and you get like the little trickle, and you'd sit there and you'd have all your emails queued up during the day, so they would like you're like, please get out, please get out, please get out, please get out.
Wow, that's crazy.
That's
But
cool.
but yeah, we so I did like a couple weeks, and then I just absolutely met some great people, fell in love with the country. Came back like a couple months later. I did a second trip there, and then I got into a habit where I was going down for probably like the first like 5 or 6 years. I was doing like at least 2 trips a year,
Right.
and got to know. I mean, I have like friends down there that were doing some like real estate projects, and then I met some other people that were just like running businesses,
That's cool.
and I just explored. I haven't been to like every part of the country, but I've explored like a good chunk of it.
Right.
and then I ended up buying some land up in the north, so kind of away from a lot of stuff. But I bought in like a little area with a couple friends that a good buddy of mine that's been down there for probably almost 20 years at this point, living down there full time.
Oh, wow.
And a couple other people that like are now living down there full time, but we all kind of bought in the same little tract. So,
that's cool.
Nice.
Mine's still raw land, but
They all
there's-
developed?
Yeah, it's not everyone, but there's a I mean the whole thing is like 3 kilometers of beach.
Wow.
But
Wow, that's awesome.
they there's a bunch of everything from like $20,000 like little 1-bedroom bungalows to like $500,000 like estates with like 2 pools and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
That's crazy.
but yeah, it's a magical country. It's I love it down there.
You speak any other languages or anything?
Un poquito.
Yeah.
Español está muy
Learning more.
malo, pero un poquito.
Gotcha.
It's good enough, right? Donde es cerveza? You know, like, you're good.
Yeah.
La playa.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool.
I'm like trying to crash course. We were going to, like I said, Thailand and Bali in a couple weeks. I'm like trying to crash course again. Like I know a little bit of Indonesian now, and it's like, and I'm trying to like, all right, how do you say this? Or what is?
Right.
And the same thing. Thai is just like another whole language. It's, I don't understand. Like, I mean, I'm definitely like envious of people that can speak Thai, not as their first language, because it's
Right.
like,
I mean, that was
it's a challenge.
Yeah, it's true. And that was my first feeling of, I used to travel a good amount for work. And I remember being in Japan once, like just wandering the streets. And that was my first feeling like I'm screwed. Because it's like not only a different language, but a different alphabet, right? So you're looking at street signs and like nothing computes. You're just like,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. You know? You know, so you go back to the pachinko hall and just, you know, wait it out until someone finds you, basically.
Well, fortunately, we have Google Maps. And,
Right. Yeah, now that's
T-Mobile
right.
has.
There's that new app, right?
Yeah, or T-Mobile has like free international data. So
Yeah.
traveling got really easy. Like when all
That's
that
sweet.
stuff started to happen. Like
That's true.
I've been in like cow pastures and like I don't know, like rural like Nicaragua and like Google Maps. And you find the little roads and stuff. It's crazy.
That is pretty
I mean,
crazy.
sometimes you find a road and then you hit like a barbed wire fence and then you're done. But I did that, numerous times. But
That's cool. I like it.
we did that in Northern Bali one time too.
That is pretty sweet, man. I mean, it's the world continuously gets smaller, right? You know, with stuff like that. It's not. So, how do you plan to keep doing that as your son gets older?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not in school yet, so we're still fortunate to be able to do the longer trips. Regardless, I mean, we'll probably just have to shift a lot of our travel to the summers. I do enjoy being around here during the summers, but I also enjoy traveling. So, I mean, maybe we're not going away for like a month in July, but but maybe like.
Maybe you should bring
kinda
back
shift some of
that family tradition of van trips in the summer, man. You know?
Good.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've like explored like chunks of the U.S.
Get an RV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be pretty sweet. So, what else do you like to do in your sort of non-business time?
I practice and teach yoga as a hobby, and because I don't have enough stuff on my plate. I started practicing yoga, I guess, about like 2007. I started practicing Ashtanga Yoga, and really it came out of a necessity of I needed around that time. That's when I first started to really like ramp up the travel. I needed some sort of like lifestyle change. I needed like something that like to move to help like clear my mind a little bit. And I remember before I started practicing yoga, I had gone. There was like a zendo in Elberon, I think it was, or Long Branch, somewhere up there, where literally they did like a Zen meditation thingy on like Sunday mornings. Now you go down there in like this guy's basement, you stare at a wall for like 35 minutes, you walk around for 15 minutes and stare at a wall for another 35 minutes, and it was miserable. And at least at the time, and now I like love it.
Right.
But so then I at that time I kind of like was like I need something, and then I wandered into a yoga studio and fell in love with it immediately. So I started practicing like 5-6 days a week, and which I still have like a practice that's like that intense. Really, I remember like it was like you're doing this and you don't even realize, and this is like the biggest. I'm not trying to sell anybody on like yoga, but I am.
Right.
I remember it was probably like 2010ish. I crashed a motorcycle, and I broke a rib or something like that, where I couldn't get into like a downward dog. I couldn't do a chaturanga or anything like that. And I was basically incapacitated from like yoga. So a week went by, my mind started to I'd wake up in the morning angry, and I'd be like, "Whoa, I can't, like I'm feeling all like the things that I'm like doing yoga to kind of keep out." And so I was like, I'm gonna try this meditation thing. So I remember I popped up one morning, like 6 o'clock. I was just sitting in my bed. I just like got up and set the alarm, and like the alarm went off, and I just kind of clicked in. I was like, I'll sit for another couple seconds. And hour went by, like, and I completely was just like, oh my God, that was an hour. It felt like 5 minutes.
Right.
And then I realized, I'm like, that's like the subtle thing, like what yoga was doing to me. And like, and it's when you bring the breath in and you kind of slow the mind, and you start to like all the like subtleties and the things that happen to your body and the shift that happens. It's real. And so that got me. And I was like, oh, cool, meditation's awesome. And so it got me through that until I could start practicing again. And but yeah, it's something I've taught, just like people have invited me to teach, you know, like over the years and stuff. And recently I did a 300-hour training last year, and since then I've been teaching a couple classes a week over at Ohana in Ocean Grove, and then at Powerflow in Asbury. But
Nice.
but yeah, it's kind of like it's a fun thing for me. But like the teaching's kind of like I have some things I could teach people, so I enjoy doing it.
Right.
I also think there used to be a pretty big Ashtanga community around here, and it's kind of waned over the years. So so I like to be able to offer that and be able to invite people to come out. So
What's the difference between Ashtanga and other types of yoga?
it's one of the older like lineages, and it's most modern vinyasa is like based on it. But it's kind of like without knocking any other styles of yoga. Like, Ashtanga is pretty, like, I walked into, like, if you're a type A personality and you want to, like, get beat up in a yoga class and feel like you got worked out, like, that's, like, the first yoga class I ever worked. That's what I thought yoga was for, like, the first, like, 5 years I was doing it. Yeah. But yeah, so it's intimidating to a lot of people. It's definitely not everyone's cup of tea. And to be honest, I practice a lot of different styles now, in addition. But that's the one I always go back to. Like when we're in Bali next month, I'm actually training with a couple of like the old school teachers from like the first Westerners in India in like the 1970s and stuff like that. So I'm studying with a couple of them when I'm there. And
That's cool.
Yeah, that's sweet. I did yoga in our room last night.
Nice.
My wife does it, and I was sore from wrestling practice. She's like, "Could you just help me like stretch my back?" All right, so I didn't do it for meditating, but I did it strictly to get my spine just like stretched out. I was doing like downward dog and stuff, and I mean, I woke up feeling loose, you know, and yeah, and it's, you know, I did it for about 15 to 20 minutes in the room, which is minimal, but
it doesn't take much. I mean,
it doesn't take much.
And that's the thing too, is like developing a practice, like going
Yeah.
back to like finding time to do
Right.
stuff. Like a practice doesn't mean sitting down and like meditating, doing a bunch of pranayama, doing a bunch of asana for like 2 hours and taking like a big chunk out of your day. It could be like, you know what, I don't have a lot of time today. I'm just gonna like do like 3 sun salutations, or
Yeah.
I'm gonna do downward dog, or like
Yeah.
get on one. I've been like my back. I've been like loving opening up lately. So I'm sitting on like a wheel and rolling different parts of my back out, and like and then sitting there in a restorative posture for like 10 minutes, like things like that, or like
That's
I
where
mean,
it helps with me. I sit, even if like
Yeah.
right here, I'm sitting like this the whole
That
time.
happens all the time.
I feel
yeah.
tight, you know, it helps.
No, it's true. What is your source now for, like, do you continue to educate yourself in business? Like, what's your source of information, and
All
how
the
do you do
time.
that? Yeah.
I read a lot. Last year I was, because I did my whole like year-end personal analysis, whatever, like
Right.
intention, whatever you
Yep.
call it. But I realized I read like 22 books last year, which
Did
it
you?
didn't. I felt like I didn't really read much last year.
I didn't read last year. That's a new one for me this year.
And I was just like, I'm like, wow, you still read like, and those were books that I like read, and there was like a bunch that I didn't actually finish, or I'm still sitting on. So I read a lot. I like I said, travel. Like I like to go experience and see things,
Right.
Absorb information that way.
Yep.
Lately, I've been really into like the whole like investment real estate thing. I'm thinking I might do some residential stuff this year. I don't know. We'll see.
Right.
But I've been educated, listening to like the Bigger Pockets podcasts, and,
Sure.
and like we've talked a little bit about that type of stuff, and reading those types of books. But I'm a reader. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but
Right.
I like the actual. I read on like an iPad sometimes, but I do prefer like an actual book.
Yeah. Me too.
I know a lot of people like my partner Danny like is a audiobook guy, and he just like burns through like audible.
Does
And
it?
but I can't do that. Like it's like if I'm, I don't know, my way my brain works, if I'm like sitting at my desk with my headphones on, I can't be like, if I'm like listening to something and trying to do work, it's like I'm either not listening or I'm,
Right.
Yeah.
it's like one or the other. I can't
I
do both.
agree. Yeah.
I don't have a long commute, so I'm like 5 minutes.
Right.
So I don't have like,
Yeah.
I was listening to a podcast on the way up here today,
Right.
so I'm like, oh, it's a
It's
nice,
funny because
I have a
that's-
15-minute commute today.
Sometimes I miss that. It's like that was
Yeah.
your time to get in like audio information. You know?
Yeah.
And then your commute, if that doesn't exist, yeah, it's hard to pick it up.
Yeah.
That's true. And then I've been to a couple of your meetups. So I mean, is a meetup a good source of information for you as well, like learning from the community?
Yeah, it's. I mean, yeah, it's good for learning. I think the real value in a lot of meetups is just meeting people.
Yeah.
Yeah, like any time, like you can put yourself around like a room full of people that are in an industry that you're engaged in or want to be engaged in. I think
Right.
it's. I think it's a good opportunity.
Yeah.
And really just being like able to like kind of like meet people and I don't.
Sure.
It's weird because I'm not like a natural networker. Like I run all these meetups, but I think there's actually something I was reading recently of like, oh, you're not a networker, start a meetup.
Right.
'Cause,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So I can go like stand in the corner,
Right.
like and wait. Oh, you're the guy that runs it.
Right.
And then it's a good way to kind of like meet people and,
Get
and
people
talk to
come in.
people.
It's funny.
Like
You got a good one coming up, right? Cybersecurity for real estate professionals.
with them. One of our partners is coming
Yeah.
in and doing like a lunch and learn event. I will not sadly be overseas at that time, but
Yeah.
but everyone should go.
Totally.
Yeah.
But those events are good because we bring in lunch from usually one of the restaurants in town, and like we do catered full lunch. It's free, and then people come and listen to a little bit of information and
Right.
meet some people, and they're cool events.
That's cool. I went to your blockchain event. I only was able to make it once, the first one, last year. And you said something early on about your early education was like invest in things you know. And I spent all of 2018 investing in things I didn't know. Like I thought I was suddenly a crypto expert.
Don't worry, I think there's a lot of us there.
So I'm sitting on a lot of duds right now, waiting for them to bounce back. What's your interest in crypto?
I mean, my interest started in 2013, and
Right.
I put a little bit of money in 2013 into like Bitcoin, and I honestly wrote it off, and I was just like, all right, whatever.
Right.
Like, I didn't. Another investment tip: don't invest more than you can afford to lose.
Right.
So I think
That's a good one.
I'm only talking a couple $100. And,
Right.
But I mean, if you put a couple $100 into Bitcoin in 2013,
Sure.
like if you do the math, like December 2017, it was pretty. It was a part of like, am I going to pay for my house in cash or am I going to pay for it?
Right.
Like,
Yeah, right.
and it's,
Totally.
Yeah, and it was like, and then now it's back to like nothing. I mean, it's not nothing. It's
Right.
I mean, I'm still up from 2013 to be honest, which
Yeah,
is
that's
awesome.
cool.
But it's not like nobody's retiring. I'm
Right,
Like, I'm
totally.
like, oh, I'm retiring like next year. But,
Yeah, exactly.
But I've seen it go through one cycle already,
Mm-hmm.
so I think the technology has. There's something to the technology. There's going
Right.
to be use cases. I think like anything else, it just got hyped up,
Mm-hmm.
and there's like people. Like you said, you're investing in things you don't understand.
Right.
Like, and I think right now, if you look at like the history of the internet, like when the internet was like most of the 90s, it was really you're seeing those service layers be built.
Yep.
And I think that's very much where we're at with blockchain.
Right.
And crypto is like we're building like the underlying infrastructure. It's hard to explain to somebody like what is like, I don't know, pick a random like VeChain or like a random like not Ripple but request network or like things like that. Like what are these, like how do you explain that to like your mom, like what
Right.
it is, versus like a couple years later the internet, it's like when you get like an eBay or an Amazon,
Right.
like hey mom, or like hey Evan, what's Amazon? It's like, oh, it's this bookstore on the internet.
Right.
And it's like you can explain it like that.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think like right now, like you're gonna start to see like we're building the service layer out, and then you're gonna start to see like actual real world applications, like, and that's when I think you're gonna see that next wave of interest, because
Right.
then and then it'll shake out again, because then everybody's gonna
Right. Totally.
like
Ju-
everyone's gonna throw
buy and
money.
buy and hold.
If you want, I mean, I'm not putting any money into anything, but I don't know.
What about-
maybe you should be?
What about as a tech? Are you using the technology in any of your businesses?
No, because there's not really any like use cases yet that,
Right.
especially in what we're doing. I mean, I see stuff with like an interesting thing with like Merchworks and Bands on a Budget, our t-shirt and printing business. I see like blockchain is a really interesting application of like verifying supply chain, like whether it's from an ethical standpoint of like, all right, these are fair trade, whatever, organic cotton, like T-shirts, and you have like tracking through the supply chain of like it's not just like somebody's getting mistreated in like Laos or whatever.
Right.
It's like you're actually seeing like a transaction record across like the blockchain that validates that that can't be forged and faked. And so I think that's a good application. You see it with like authenticity of like there was an application actually, a company was working on it for the seafood industry, of making sure like fish is like responsibly like caught and
that's cool,
sourced and you're getting the product that you're supposed to be getting.
Right.
There was a book, I can't remember, it came a couple years ago, I was reading, or a paper about the food sources, how like sometimes you'll go in and think you're buying this like supreme high end super cut of like sushi, and it turns out it's like just like not what you're it's, but it's all just like there's a lot of forgery. I mean the same thing with like, I mean think about like any like the luxury, like I don't know, handbags and totally. Spend a lot of time in Southeast Asia, and there's like all the
or
Supreme,
Canal Street.
I mean Supreme is like you go everywhere. And it's like it's like you want any Supreme gear you want, you can get there for like $5.
Yeah.
It's like not even like $2.
I mean, maybe it's cool for the fresh markets also. Like, are there restaurants that shop at the fresh markets, and maybe they could trace, where their produce is coming from or that kind of stuff?
I think.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it applies directly to that, but yeah, I mean, a lot of the restaurants in town actually do service our markets, which is great. Like,
that's cool.
You see them all come out at the end of the day and buy up whatever the farms like.
That's awesome.
Have at the end of the day. It's nice.
That's my favorite thing. Like I learned from traveling actually was visiting a lot of places where different regions of different countries. They cooked what was natural to their region, right?
Yeah.
And they'd be like, no menu. It'd be like, well, this is what was available today, And I think that's awesome. Like,
and that's how I love to cook at home too. It's like that's my it's not the same menu. It's like, oh, we got to get this because this is what we eat. It's like what's in season right now. Like this time of year, it's like a lot of root vegetables, and it's like your selection's pretty like limited,
right?
And like drives me nuts. And like my wife, she'll come home with like they're actually less than half a pint now of blueberries. It's probably like $8 for like 5 ounces of blueberries.
Strawberries, the same
and I'm like,
thing,
and it's like why you? Atlas likes to eat them. Like, yeah, but it's like not like. You're spending a fortune,
right?
But it's not in season. It's not like that's not like eat with the seasons. Eat with like he doesn't need blueberries 52 weeks a year. He might only need them like 8 weeks of the year when they're like in season. But I think if we ate that way, not only I believe it's like fundamentally healthier, I believe it's healthier for like the ecosystem, the environment as well too, because you're not like forcing a crop into like producing something when it's not naturally meant to be producing something,
and overproducing just to keep it up for the seasons.
That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we
talk a lot.
I mean, maybe we can wrap up with cooking. I mean, first you mentioned your son Atlas. I'm jealous. This kid has the coolest name.
Ever, that's awesome.
How did Atlas Strummer come about?
It's like a rock.
I wanted to name him Strummer. My wife was like, "Nope, not happening."
Right.
Like Joe Strummer.
Yeah. So was Joe the source.
Yeah, that was cool. Like my inspiration. Atlas. Honestly, I think we were hanging out in Guatemala. We were in Lake Atilan in Guatemala, and she was, I don't know, 6 months pregnant or whatever. We were at the point where we were talking about names, and we went on some like coffee tour, plantation tour thingy, and she ended up like they gave us like, I don't know, she ate like a radish or something like that. I ended up getting like food poisoning.
Really?
And so she was like knocked out for like a day.
Right. So
I went out like just to explore the town and AKA go found a bar and some English guys and got drunk. So I came back and she's like, oh, I have a list of like 35 names.
Oh, wow.
And she'd sat around kind of brainstormed a bunch of names. So basically we just had like a ranking system of like 1 meaning you hate it, 3 it's like a possibility. So we went down, it was like 1, 2, 1, 3 and kind of kept whittling it down, and that's like yeah, there was a couple others I can't remember, but that was the one we kind of.
That's sweet.
So Strummer was like 1-0 originally.
That was the compromise.
But that's cool. You got the middle name.
I was like, I'll give you Atlas if you give me the middle name.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that was the compromise.
I love that, man. So tell us about cooking. The Explorers Supper Club actually looked like an awesome event, and I was never able to make it because I had a conflict those nights. I didn't even realize you were involved with it. I thought it was somebody else.
Oh, nice.
So that's really cool. Tell us about that and how you got involved in cooking.
Well, that is there's actually supposed to be one this Friday, but I just didn't get my shit together.
Mm.
But I had kicked around the idea of doing cooking like pop-up dinners and for a number of years, and honestly I was just like scared, and and it was like one of those things like I'll do it, I totally want to do this, and then you kind of like flake out, or you just get like a little like nervous, and you find a reason why you can't do it. And I guess we did the first one like April, I guess, or May. I basically partnered with a buddy of mine who used to have a restaurant in town, and he has like years and years and years of actual restaurant, all the things that I didn't know, like how do you take, like I can cook for like, I don't know, my friends and family or whatever, but how do you cook for 50 people? So he helped like me kind of retool recipes and like things like that to actually like be able to do that. So once I took that fear out, I was able to like be like, well, what are you waiting for? Like, what do you, like, there's no reason why you're not doing it. But really it was the goal of doing plant-based, so it's 100% vegan, plant-based cuisine that touches on some of the things that I've had on, and I'm trying to like keep it as authentic as possible. Like I'll cook a Thai, like I don't know, we did like a Penang curry, and I'm trying to modify it or model it after some of the Penang curries I've had in Thailand, and using as many of the authentic ingredients that we can find. It's actually surprisingly like you're not going to Wegmans and picking up this stuff, but it's not too difficult to to get this stuff. I mean, there's an Asian grocer that out in Cherry Hill by my parents' house that just unfortunately closed, but I've been going to for like years. But then there's another one that's in Pennsauken, or there's H Mart up in Edison. So you can source a lot of these ingredients. I mean, if you're willing to drive a little bit.
That's cool.
I also, when I travel, I'll I mean, you're not supposed to bring in this stuff
Stock
back,
up.
but I'm like literally showing like galangal and like all this stuff, and like I'll like thin slice it, throw it in the freezer, and so I'll have I'll have my stock.
That's cool.
But yeah, that was really just like the first couple of dinners were based on like some stuff I've had in Indonesia, some stuff I've had in like Thailand. I'd like to honestly, this summer winter got busy, so I haven't put another one on the calendar. When I get back, I like to reboot it because I do enjoy doing it. And but I mean, there's things like I love to like cook like Colombian food. There's like some Colombian dishes that I love to cook, and then there's like
invite me to that one. My dad's from Bogota. So
nice.
Yeah.
But cool. Yeah, so it's really just being able to like challenge people's perceptions of what like vegan food or plant-based food tastes like, while also being able to introduce people to like what like some of these flavors taste like. Like the curries are not like you're not buying a packet and dumping it in a pan. It's like I'm like making everything from scratch, from like raw ingredients, and and it's the way I make it at home. Like I make stuff and I'll freeze this stock and paste and or just make it from scratch. I mean, like my wife always said I was like a little like Thai grandmom or Indian grandmom in a former life, because I'm just like literally just throwing stuff in a pan. And she's like, this tastes like something that we had and blah blah blah. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of what I was working on.
That's pretty funny.
But it's just, I mean, it's like, I don't know. A lot of that food I've realized is like, I don't know. You cook like, imagine being from like Malaysia and being like, all right, make tomato sauce. And it's like, I don't know what tomato sauce you have, but it's not hard. I mean, if you're from New Jersey, like you know how to make tomato sauce. Like even if like you make a bad tomato sauce, it's probably better than tomato sauce you're gonna get in 90% of the world.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's like the same thing. Like once you learn like the order of the ingredients, like the spices and like the way to using fresh ingredients, that's probably the hardest thing. Like when you start to do things like that, like you really can like open up like the flavors and blow people's minds.
That's cool.
Getting hungry.
All right, Bret. We can talk to you all day long, but we got to cut you loose.
No worries.
Thanks for coming in, man. It was awesome talking to you. Once again, check out Coworks, Cowerks, at coworks.com, on Instagram at Coworks. Check out Fresh Markets, asburyfresh.com, and on Instagram at asburyfresh. BretMorgan.me. It's BRET, 1T Morgan.me. Thanks a lot, Bret. We appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much.
My name's Evan Balmer. Follow me on Instagram at Evan Balmer.
Mike Marcia at mortgageguy_Mike. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks a
awesome.
lot.
Thanks, man.